It is 2 in the morning, and I am replaying a conversation I had yesterday, word by word, and finding everything I said slightly wrong. In English or in your native language? Both. But in English, there is an extra layer. Because in my native language, I trust my words, even when I doubt them. In English, sometimes I am not even sure what I actually said, whether it came out the way I meant it, whether the word I chose was the right one, whether the silence before I spoke said something I did not intend. And this, the 2 a.m. English replay, is one of the most common and least talked about experiences of learning a language at B2 level and above, the overthinking, the spiral, the specific torture of reviewing something you said in a language you are still building. And today, we give you the English for it, not just to name it, to interrupt it. I'm Mary.
I'm Albert. LeapTalk English, B2 level, real conversation. Today, the real reason you cannot stop overthinking in English. 6 things, 15 minutes, word tour at the end. Stay for thing 3. It has the single sentence that stops the spiral, and it is only 5 words.
Comment right now. Do you replay conversations in your head after they happen, in English or in your own language? Tell us in the comments right now.
Let's go. Thing 1. What overthinking actually is, and why English makes it worse.
Thing 1, and I want to name it precisely, because overthinking is a word most people use loosely, and the precise version, the specific experience, is worth understanding. Overthinking is not thinking too much. It is thinking in circles, returning to the same thought from different angles without resolution. The thought does not advance, it just loops.
And in English specifically, the loop has an extra layer, because every time you return to the conversation, you are not just reviewing what you said, you are reviewing whether you said it right, whether the grammar held, whether the word you chose meant what you thought it meant, whether your accent changed how it landed.
And this extra layer, the language doubt layer, makes the loop faster and tighter and harder to break.
The vocabulary of overthinking.
I am spiraling, the specific English word for overthinking that accelerates. A spiral moves and gets tighter simultaneously. I am spiraling about that conversation. The thought is moving and closing in. I am in my head, absorbed by internal thought rather than present in the external world. I have been really in my head since that meeting. I am replaying it, reviewing a past event repeatedly in the mind. I keep replaying what I said. The word replaying is precise, like a recording played again and again. I cannot let it go, unable to release a thought or feeling even when you want to. I know it is over, but I cannot let it go. And the most honest phrase for the 2 a.m. version, my brain will not switch off. My brain will not switch off. And this one is the one that almost everyone who has ever learned a language in a new environment has felt. The thoughts keep running. The language keeps questioning. The switch will not move to off. I am spiraling. I am in my head. I am replaying it. I cannot let it go. My brain will not switch off. 5 phrases for 5 versions of the same experience. All natural, all real, all yours. Stay. Thing 2 covers the specific thoughts that overthinking produces in English, and they are more common than you think. Thing 2, because overthinking does not just happen in general, it produces specific thoughts, and naming those thoughts precisely in English is the first step to challenging them. I am going to say the thoughts out loud, and after each one, you give me the challenge. Go. They thought my English was bad. That's a guess dressed as a fact. What is the actual evidence? I said something wrong and everyone noticed. Everyone noticed requires everyone to have been paying close attention to your specific word choice at that exact moment. Is that realistic? I should have said it differently. Maybe, but you said it the way you said it with the English you had at that moment, which is the only English that was available. My English is not good enough. Not good enough for what? For this specific conversation you communicated. The meaning arrived. That is good enough. And the pattern in every one of those challenges, the same structure. Name the thought, then ask, is this a fact or a story? And then, what is the smallest true thing I can say instead? Is this a fact or a story? One of the most powerful questions for interrupting overthinking in any language. A fact is something that happened. A story is the meaning you put on top of what happened. Overthinking almost always lives in the story, not the fact. They thought my English was bad, story. I said one sentence that did not come out as I intended, fact. Completely different. One is enormous, one is manageable. To you, is this a fact or a story? Say this to yourself the next time a thought arrives at 2 a.m. Not to dismiss the feeling, to locate it accurately, because a story can be challenged. A fact is just a fact, and most 2 a.m. thoughts, examined carefully, are stories. Stay. Think 3 has the 5-word sentence that stops the spiral. Thing 3, and I said before the episode, this is the one. 5 words that interrupt the loop every time. What is it? That conversation is already over. 5 words. 5 words, and the word already is doing everything. Why already? Because already is past perfect, completed, done. That conversation is over is a statement of fact. That conversation is already over is a statement that the completion happened before this moment. It is not just over, it has been over. While you have been replaying it, it has been over. While you have been improving it in your head, it has been over. The other person has moved on. The conversation ended. And everything you are doing right now happens after the ending. And the 3 sentences that follow it. The futility acknowledgement. Not harsh, just accurate. The replay does not edit the conversation, it only replays it. The redirection. The energy of the overthinking, all that attention, all that analysis, aimed forward instead of backward. The next conversation is where the improvement lives. The self-compassion close. Not I did perfectly, not I did badly. I did what I could with what I had. At that moment, with that English, in that situation. What I had, what I could. That conversation is already over. Nothing I think right now changes what was said. The only conversation I can improve is the next one. I did what I could with what I had. 4 sentences, the complete spiral interrupt. Say them in order, out loud if possible, and notice what the loop does. Stay. Thing 4 covers something most learners do not know is making the overthinking worse.
Thing 4. And this one, I want to be direct about, is something most learners do without knowing it is feeding the spiral.
What is it?
Translating the overthinking into your native language.
Say more.
When the conversation happened in English, the thought happened in English. And when you replay it, you often translate it. You move the memory into your native language to process it, which feels natural, which feels easier, but which has a specific cost.
The cost, when you translate the memory into your native language, you lose the texture of what actually happened, the tone, the specific word choices, the exact thing that was said. And your native language brain fills in the gaps, often with the harshest possible interpretation because it is working with incomplete information.
And the result? A replay that is less accurate than the original experience, but more emotionally loaded. The translation makes the memory worse than it was.
The cost, when you translate the memory into your native language, you lose the texture of what actually happened, the tone, the specific word choices, the exact thing that was said. And your native language brain fills in the gaps, often with the harshest possible interpretation because it is working with incomplete information.
And the result? A replay that is less accurate than the original experience, but more emotionally loaded. The translation makes the memory worse than it was.
The fix, when you catch yourself replaying an English conversation, replay it in English, even if it is harder, even if the English is not fully there. Stay in the language of the original experience.
Because in English, the thought sounds like what it was. I hesitated before moreover. In the native language, the translation often becomes, I froze and it was obvious to everyone.
Same moment, 2 completely different stories depending on which language processes it.
The phrase for keeping the replay in English, I am going to think about this in English.
5 words, the instruction you give yourself before the replay begins. I am going to think about this in English. And then you are thinking in the language where the thought actually belongs. And in that language, it is usually smaller, more accurate, more manageable.
I am going to think about this in English. 1 sentence before the replay. That is the whole practice for this thing. Keep the thought in the language of its origin and watch how much smaller it becomes.
Thing 5. What to do with the energy instead.
Thing 5. Because overthinking is not empty, it is full of energy. The brain working hard, paying attention, caring about something. And that energy, misdirected, produces the 2 a.m. loop. Redirected, it produces something useful.
The redirect phrases. What would I do differently next time? Not what did I do wrong? What would I do differently?
The question faces forward. It takes the analytical energy of the overthinking and points it up in next conversation instead of the last one.
What one thing can I practice because of this? Even more specific, one thing. Not a full self-improvement program. One phrase, one structure, one word I want to have ready next time. I wasn't sure how to disagree politely. I am going to practice that.
This is data, not a verdict. One of the most important reframes in any learning experience. The difficult English moment is information about where the gap is, about what to practice. It is not a verdict on your ability or your worth.
Data, not verdict. Store this. Use it every time something goes wrong in English. The mistake is data. The hesitation is data. The word that didn't come is data. None of it is a verdict. All of it is useful.
And the final redirect, writing it down. Not the replay, the learning. One sentence in a notebook. Today I struggled with, and next time I will try. The act of writing it converts the overthinking energy into something physical, something outside the loop, something done.
What would I do differently next time? What one thing can I practice? This is data, not a verdict. And one sentence written down. 4 redirects for the overthinking energy. All forward-facing, all productive, all better than the 2 a.m. loop.
Last thing, the one for right now. If the overthinking is happening right now.
Thing 6. Because all of the above is useful preparation, but sometimes the spiral is already happening, and you need something for right now, not for next time, for this moment.
The right now practice.
Step 1. Name it out loud. In English. I am overthinking this. 3 words. Out loud. The act of naming it externally, in language, in English, creates distance between you and the thought. You are no longer inside the spiral. You are looking at it.
Step 2. The body first, before any more thinking. 3 slow breaths. Not because it is magic, because the overthinking brain is running fast, and the body, slowed, slows the brain slightly, just enough for the next step to be possible.
Step 3. The one true thing. What is one true thing about right now? Not about the conversation, not about your English, not about what you should have said, just about right now. I am in my room. It is quiet. I am safe. One true thing. In English, out loud.
And step 4. The permission sentence. I am allowed to let this go tonight.
I am allowed to let this go tonight. Not forever, not pretending it does not matter. Tonight. The permission is specific and temporary permission is easier to give yourself than permanent resolution.
I am allowed to let this go tonight. And tomorrow, if the thought is still there, you look at it in daylight, in English, with fresh eyes. And usually in daylight, it is smaller than it was at 2 a.m.
Because almost everything is.
To the listener, I am overthinking this. 3 slow breaths. One true thing about right now. I am allowed to let this go tonight. 4 steps for right now. If the spiral is happening right now, do these 4 things, in order, out loud where possible, and come back to the conversation, the real, next, actual conversation when you are rested.
6 things. What overthinking is and why English makes it worse. The specific thoughts it produces, named and challenged. The 5 words that stop the spiral. That conversation is already over. The thing making it worse, translating into your native language. What to do with the energy instead. Data, not verdict. And what to do right now if the spiral is happening.
And the thing running through all 6, the same thing, is that the 2 a.m. brain is not telling you the truth about your English. It is telling you the 2 a.m. version of events, which is always louder, always harsher, always less accurate than the daylight version.
Your English in daylight, in the actual conversation, is better than your English at 2 a.m. in the replay.
It always is.
Trust the daylight version. Sleep, and try again tomorrow.
Word tour.
First word, spiral. A spiral moves and gets tighter simultaneously. In the context of overthinking, to spiral means to have thoughts that accelerate and close in rather than advancing toward resolution. I am spiraling is the most precise English word for overthinking that is getting worse rather than resolving.
For example, she had been spiraling for an hour. The same conversation, the same words, each replay slightly more catastrophic than the last. The spiral was not giving her new information. It was giving her the same information, louder. Repeat, spiral.
Spiral.
Next, ruminate. To ruminate means to think deeply about something in a way that keeps returning to the same point, like a cow chewing cud, returning to the same material again and again. Rumination is the academic word for the specific thought pattern of overthinking that loops rather than advances.
For example, he had been ruminating on the meeting for 3 days, not to find new understanding, but because the thought kept returning on its own, uninvited, every time there was quiet. Repeat, ruminate.
Ruminate. Next, redirect. To redirect means to change the direction of something, to point it somewhere new. Redirecting overthinking means taking the energy of the spiral and pointing it forward rather than backward. The question, what would I do differently next time, is a redirect. For example, the redirect was the most useful practice she found, not stopping the overthinking, which was often impossible, but changing its direction from what went wrong to what would I try differently. Same energy, completely different destination. Repeat, redirect.
Redirect.
Next, accurate. Accurate means correct, giving a true and precise representation of something. In the context of overthinking, the 2 a.m. replay is almost never accurate. It is amplified, distorted, filtered through exhaustion and self-criticism. The daylight version is more accurate, and accurate is what matters.
For example, she had learned to distrust the 2 a.m. version of events, not because the feelings were not real, but because the accuracy was compromised. The brain under stress at midnight is not a reliable narrator of what actually happened at 3 in the afternoon. Repeat, accurate.
Accurate. Next, interrupt. To interrupt means to break the continuity of something, to cause something to stop before it has finished. Interrupting the spiral means breaking the loop before it completes another cycle. That conversation is already over is an interruption. It breaks the loop by naming its futility. For example, the 5-word sentence had become her spiral interrupt. The moment she heard herself replaying the conversation, she said it out loud and the loop broke. Not always permanently, often enough. Repeat, interrupt.
Interrupt.
Next, futile. Futile means producing no result, useless, and capable of producing any outcome. Replaying a conversation to improve it is futile because the conversation has already ended. The replay cannot change what was said. Naming the futility, nothing I think now changes what was said, is not giving up. It is being accurate.
For example, the replaying was futile and she knew it. The conversation was over, the words were said, and no amount of internal editing would change them. But futile things can still feel urgent, and knowing they are futile does not always stop them.
Repeat, futile.
Futile.
Next, permission. Already covered in 2 previous episodes, returning here because in the context of overthinking, self-permission takes a very specific form. I am allowed to let this go tonight is not resolution, it is temporary permission. And temporary permission is far easier to give yourself than asking for permanent resolution of something that is still unresolved. For example, the permission was specific, and that specificity was what made it work. Not, I will never worry about this again, which was impossible, but I am allowed to let this go tonight, which was completely manageable. Repeat, permission, permission. And our final word, distorted. Distorted means pulled out of true shape, inaccurate because of a force applied to it. The 2 a.m. replay of an English conversation is distorted, pulled out of its true shape by exhaustion, self-criticism, and the amplifying effect of silence and dark. The daylight version is closer to the actual shape.
For example, the memory was distorted by the time 2 a.m. arrived. The hesitation that had lasted 2 seconds felt like 10. The word that had come out slightly wrong felt like the only thing anyone had noticed. The contribution that had landed well had faded entirely from the replay. Distorted, not true. Repeat, distorted.
Distorted.
8 words: spiral, ruminate, redirect, accurate, interrupt, futile, permission, distorted. Every one names something real about what happens in the 2 a.m. English brain, and every one is a tool for what to do about it.
This week, one practice. The next time you catch yourself replaying an English conversation, say these 5 words out loud. That conversation is already over. And then, one true thing about right now, in English, out loud.
Because the spiral cannot survive accuracy, and accuracy, in the daylight, in the right language, with the right words, is what today was.
I'm Mary.
I'm Albert. LeapTalk English. Thank you for listening, even at 2 a.m. See you in the next episode. Bye, everyone.
Bye.